Paul. You're on the line with Steve Jewin of MMA Mania SB Nation.
Hey, it's good to talk to you again, Paul. How are you doing?
Doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm great. It's been a while. Last time I saw you was in October here in Council Bluffs, so you had a great fight that night against Josh Neer, and one of my favorite things about that show was how much he freaked out after the end of that fight. You really frustrated the heck out of him.
Yeah, Josh was a game opponent, tough, pretty guy, but, I was doing fine on the striking, but when the wrestling was that easy, that easy for the takedown, just to beat on him and take no damage, it was almost too easy. And I think we all saw it in the fight. I've never seen Josh that frustrated, and, just he let the fight get away from him, I remember after the first round, him laying on his back and just not even getting up, and I'm just like, man, this kid is done, so.
He was, but then there were still 2 more rounds to go, and you dominated him for all 3. So it was a tremendous performance. Whether he liked it or not, it was a good win in your column.
Yeah, and I like Josh, and took it real personal. I think that got to him a little bit about the fight. I guess thought we were closer friends than what we were, but at the same time, man, I treat it like a competition, and I've wrestled teammates and friends before, and it's nothing but business to me. But like I said, I think Josh took it a little more personal, and I think that kind of affected him too,
That's true, but I don't know if anybody can take it personal with your next fight, because both got great wrestling pedigrees going in. Chris Honeycutt's one heck of a wrestler, and so are you. So, I usually tend to think when that happens, it turns into a stand-up war, because both wrestlers neutralize each other. Are you prepared for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a few of those fights before. It's seen my career with Mike Pierce, Nathan Boyd fights. I'm just looking to stuff these takedowns and make them pay on every shot. So, I think that works to my advantage, and I've got great wrestling defense. I've been taken down one time out of 29 fights, so I feel pretty confident in that department.
You should, but at the same time, I think Honeycutt's feeling pretty confident in the striking performance. He developed very quickly from a wrestler out of Edinburgh to a knockout artist, and he's done it in 2 straight Bellator fights.
Right. Yeah, he not taking anything away from the guy, but we got to look at his competition too, though. So, it wasn't against a Mike Pierce or Nathan Boyd or any of those guys, but he's developing, but I think it's just too soon for him for this fight, man.
Well, you are definitely going to be the toughest fight he's had to date, no question about that. But hey, just real briefly, since you mentioned Nathan Coy a couple of times, what did you think of this season of The Ultimate Fighter? As a guy who's watched Coy for a while, I felt really bad for him. Things just didn't go his way at all.
No, the fight he lost, man, like, I look at it and I'm thinking, is that the same fighter that beat me in last March? I'm not even going to take anything away from him, but he totally looked uncharacteristic for him. He was diving around, and I know he can fight better than that, and he showed it his next fight. But he came out on the wrong end of the deal. The first fight, just didn't look like himself at all. But kind of redeemed himself that second fight. But yeah, it's been a weird season for that guy.
Weird season for that team as a whole. I mean, they were out of it until the final 4 fights, and then they stormed back. It was pretty remarkable, especially with veteran guys like Nathan Coy and Steve Carl coming up on the losing end. You're like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I really didn't see the Steve Carl thing coming. That's a guy who won the World Series fighting championship and beat a tough Josh Bergman. So, yeah, that was weird. Honestly, I think a lot of that had to do with his weight, man. He just wasn't keeping that in check. You can't go in there and cut 25 pounds, 3 days before. So
that's too hard to do, especially with the changing landscape of MMA right now, where it's going to be extremely hard for a lot of fighters in a lot of places to rehydrate after making a really big cut. So it's going to have to be a very close diet, and everybody's going to have to be closer to their fighting weight.
Right, as it should be, that cuts down on all this bad stuff that's been happening with the weight cutting. Everyone's trying to take the easy route instead of dieting down. They're trying to do it the quick way and get in there and do less work, but it doesn't work out that way, and it hurts these guys. So
So it's not going to be quick work for you at all. I'm sure you're like within 5-10 pounds of where you need to be for next Friday as we speak right now.
I'm not that, but I'm in check. I've done this my whole life, and I know exactly how to do it. I do the water load, and that actually helps flush the system and get me close to weight. So, it's never easy, but I'm never going to put my health at risk. So I just do it right. I diet down, and then the last 15 is going to be all water cuts. So
I'm sure you'll be fine on Thursday when you go to the Mohegan Sun and step on that scale. So
absolutely, I just got to be dialed in. That's the first fight is scale. So I like to make it as easy as possible, and that way I'm ready to go the next night.
now you're on a very loaded welterweight card. They've stacked this one up with the main event, of course, Lima and Koreshkov, and you're on in the co-main event, or at least that's the batting order as I see it right now. They may change it on fight day, I don't know, but how do you feel being in that number 2 slot and on this card that's just stacked from top to bottom with welterweight fighters?
I think it's awesome. I get to showcase our division, which I think it's probably the toughest division right now in Bellator. And being that co-main event, I think that says something. I think, with a big win, a big finish, I think that puts me right in the hunt for that title shot. So looking forward to it. It's going to be a really big card, and a lot of excitement going around about it. So.
Absolutely. In fact, let me ask you right now, since you're in that spot where, like you said, you could earn a shot with a big win, who would you rather face, the current champion or his challenger Koreshkov?
Man, they're both extremely talented tough fighters. I was just saying this earlier that I don't think Koreshkov is getting the respect that guy deserves. He's lost one fight to Askren, as has Lima. So I think Koreshkov could surprise people. Like, I devastating striker and he's good everywhere. So I'm excited to see that fight. Of course, I'm gonna focus on mine first, but after mine's over, I'll be looking in on that fight. I'll be a fan of it. I'll be a fan of the sport. Watching those two guys go at it. So.
If you don't end up getting that next title shot, even if you get a very impressive win, who else from this card would you like to face? Like a Michael Page or a Brennan Ward or a Paul Daly?
Whoever Bellator gives me is fine. Honestly, if I don't get the title shot, if I have to just bring them in, I'll keep knocking them down. It's one of those things where they're gonna decide who I fight anyways. But it's all those guys are quality opponents, and I think I match up well with all of them. So it all depends, I guess. Hopefully, with the big win, though, I focus on fighting that belt holder.
Just a real quick note on the prelims. Your former foe Near is on this card as well. It might be the swing bout. They might bonus it onto television if there's time, and he's fighting Matt Secor. So what are your thoughts on that fight for Near?
I think it's a good fight for him. I think it's a fight that he can really showcase his striking, go out there and get a finish. We all know Josh. He goes for the finish, man. So good for him, and I think we'll get right back on that track with the win over this kid, and I'm expecting a knockout. He likes to throw hands, punches, so tough guy, and good for him.
Well, let's say he does get that big knockout and he calls you out. Would you want that rematch?
If I have to take it, I have to take it. But I beat him so soundly last time. I don't really see a point. I'm looking at the bigger picture, something that pushes me towards a title shot, and I don't think beating Josh Neer again is going to put me in that right direction. So
right.
I'm looking at the guys, the Dailies, the Kosheks, those guys. If I don't get the title shot, that's what I want. I want those guys who, after I beat them, there's no way I can be denied a title shot.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of Josh Koscheck, he's a very recent signee to Bellator, so obviously too quick of a turnaround to put him in a fight on this card, but I know he'll be there watching just like everybody else, so you're going to get a chance to talk to him, and it sounds like that's somebody you'd be very interested in fighting.
Yeah, he's got a big name. He's been around, fought for a championship before, and, he's a tough dude, so... like I said, I got my eyes on that title fight. That's what I want. I want the winner of that, but so be it. If it doesn't happen, then I need to start looking at future opponents after this one.
Yeah, he would be a good one. If that could be a title eliminator fight right there. He's got the big name coming in. You've got the good record going in. So one of you two could end up being the next contender.
Yeah, for sure. That's what it takes. Like I said, that's what it takes. So I'm willing to fight any of the guys to get that title shot. I'm at that point in my career where I want to make this run and I want to get that title fight and get that belt. It's the only thing I'm worried about, so we'll see,
All right, well, let me take it in a different direction. Since I saw you in Council Bluffs, what would you say is the biggest change or the thing you've improved on most between then and now?
Probably just working on my striking all the time, combining that with my wrestling, taking everything, like I said, bits and pieces, done different aspects of the sport, put just a month in here, a month in there of straight jiu-jitsu, whether going to a tournament or whatnot, and straight kickboxing. So getting a lot of good work. We got Glory fighter Mike Lemire right here in San Diego. I got to work with him a little bit after this last fight. So just getting better at every aspect, and not so much just doing straight MMA every day. So.
Well, and there's a lot of fighters that are crossing back and forth between Glory and Bellator MMA right now anyway, guys like Joe Schilling, so it obviously doesn't hurt to work with kickboxing and do a little of that.
Yeah, and it keeps it fresh, and instead of the constant grind of MMA every day, it's nice to get out and just put yourself in a different non-comfort level, so.
That's true, but at the same time, that constant grind is what made you such a great fighter. That constant grind of wrestling, all the way from your amateur days through college, University of Iowa. That grind made you something special.
Yes, sir. I wouldn't change any of it. I got to wrestle off one of the most prestigious colleges in wrestling and University of Iowa. So I have great coaches. I got pushed to the limit every day, and that's something that you have to go through it to get it. So like I said, I was lucky enough to attend the University of Iowa and have great coaching staff, and every single day get pushed. So yeah, it builds you. And it built me some fighting.
So how did you feel when you heard that Dan Gable was getting elected into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame? I'm sure that had to be a really big thrill to hear.
Yeah, the guy's a legend. I grew up watching the Iowa Hawkeyes with Gable coaching them, and although he wasn't my coach there, he helped me out a lot when I was at the University of Iowa. So I've always been a big fan of that guy. The guy's a madman. He still trains harder than most 22-year-olds. But love that guy, man. The guy knew how to adapt to every single athlete, the different personalities and everything. So, yeah, I mean, there couldn't be a guy who's more needs to be more recognized than that guy in the sport of wrestling.
Absolutely. That's why even when, Jim Zaleski took over, I grew up with Dan Gable. So when I think of the University of Iowa, I still think of him. It's like that permanent association never goes away.
Yeah. And it created a lot of pressure on those coaches coming in, I remember my sophomore year, we took second in the nation and won Big Tens, but man, at our social event after the tournament, you would think we were at a funeral. So it's like, yeah, I put 1 or nothing. So but yeah, that's why you gotta love Iowa wrestling. They expect nothing but the best.
I kind of experienced that in a whole new way ever since I moved to Nebraska, because they have equally high expectations for the football team here. It's like you can win 9 games, and like you said, people treat it like it's a funeral if you're not playing in the national championship. That's how high the expectations are.
Oh yeah, when I was recruited to Nebraska, that's when they were at their biggest back in 2001, and I remember they showed me like all this stuff. They showed me the Nebraska weight room, the field, all this cool stuff, and I'm thinking, I can't even use any of this. So it was like, at Nebraska, that was one of the real big reasons I actually didn't really take them into consideration getting recruited, was like wrestling wasn't even on the map as far as popularity and fans were at Iowa. Hawkeye football still reigns number one, but man, Iowa wrestling is right up at the top, right there with, Iowa football as far as fan base and popularity. So.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you must have gotten recruited for Iowa State, too, because they have an outstanding wrestling program. It's a rivalry between Iowa and Iowa State that goes back decades.
Yeah, funny story about that. Yeah, during my recruiting process, I actually got offered a full ride to Iowa State. Bobby Douglas came down to my school, came to my house. That guy, he hustled on me, but I ended up going to Iowa for about 42%. But, yeah, it was just, I couldn't go against what I grew up loving and where my heart was, even though Iowa State offered me all this great stuff and Dale Sanderson was my recruiting host. I knew I wanted to be a Hawkeye ever since I was a little kid. So I took, as you could say, probably the pay cut. Went to the University of Iowa and over the full ride to Iowa State.
Well, I'm not mad at you for it, even though I'm a Cyclone. So I think I'm more frustrated by the fact that Cale left and went to Penn State. It's like, if he had gone to Iowa, I would have at least respected that. It's like, how can you go to Penn State?
Man, money talks, man. I've heard that guy's contract is, with the shoe endorsements and his salary, it's over $1 million a year. So, I mean, I can't blame the guy. The guy is sitting pretty and winning national titles over there in Happy Valley, so he's obviously made a pretty good decision.
Yeah, no, I don't blame him for that either. But still, if people go from Iowa to Iowa State, I just always understand it a little better. It's like, keep it at home. But, yeah. Oh, well, what can you do?
Iowa State,
go ahead.
Yeah, they should have jumped on him during that Bobby Douglas thing, where he was getting ready to leave, but they didn't. They kind of left him high and dry, didn't really let him know what was going on, so he took the opportunity and left. Like I said, it was a huge loss to Iowa State. Having a guy like that there, man, that would have made a big difference, so.
Yeah, it would, and it obviously has changed things a lot, but it's rebuilding. We did have a national champion in the last year, so I can't be too upset about it. As somebody that's been in...
Oh, yeah, that
Go ahead.
No, I said Gatson, man. He came on out of nowhere, man. That was great. I really enjoyed watching that guy wrestle this year, so... And he's a Waterloo boy, so even better,
I always feel this way anymore when I watch collegiate wrestling. I watch people and I think to myself, man, that guy would be a great MMA fighter. So here's hoping, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, guys are, obviously that's the best space to have in the sport, and everything else, you can work on and get better at. I'm sure, wrestling takes a lifetime. It's not like striking where a few years you can get pretty dang good at it. Wrestling is just like, man, it just literally takes a lifetime of doing it to know the different positions and how to defend this and that,
As much as people hated Ben Askren when he was the welterweight champion, I had so much respect for him because I just watched the way he used his wrestling base to dominate people. And when somebody would complain to me, I'm like, if you're facing Ben Askren, learn how to be a better wrestler than he is, or you're not going to win, because that's what he does.
Yeah, Askren, he would tell you, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to take you down and punch you in the face. That was pretty cool of him, I thought that was awesome. He did exactly that. He knew where he was good at. He took you there, so can't fault him for that.
No, absolutely not. And yeah, I don't think anybody faults you either when you get that takedown and you humble people on the ground. And if that's what happens in the fight with Chris Honeycutt, then more power to you. And if it's a stand-up bang-em fight, then hey, we'll enjoy that too. Either way it goes.
Absolutely, ready to go wherever this fight needs to go.
All right, and the place it needs to go right now is the Mohegan Sun, Friday, July 17th, Uncasville, Connecticut. So before we wrap it up, I want to give you this chance to plug anything you want to plug.
Yeah, absolutely. My sponsors who have helped me tremendously, Dr. Frank Giabate over at Skylar Orthopedics for taking care of me 2 fights ago and sponsoring me this fight, Dirty Millionaire, my clothing company. Good friend John Lazar at WTC Wide Format, Ozzy's Plumbing right here in San Diego, Pete Bernstein over at SupplementSupplyDepot.com for my nutritional stuff. Hayabusa, I'm pretty excited about that. I'm wearing their fight shorts, longtime sponsor of a guy by the name of GSP, so honored to be wearing wearing those shorts and representing a company like that. And then, of course, Soul Republic for all the gear and the headphones they sent. And then Show Love for Laura. I'd say it's a Facebook page for whose wife actually died from glioblastoma of the brain cancer. So every time I fight for her and her cause. And then finally, Alliance and all my coaches, Brian Keck, George Castro, Eric Del Ferro, and of course my striking MMA coach, Tony Palafox. So definitely, and then finally, my wrestling club and my camps at UltimateWarriorCamps.com/club. So appreciate everything, and thank you for the interview.
No problem, Paul. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'll throw in one more for you. Everybody should follow you on Twitter at PaulBradley184.
Yeah, there you go. Paul Bradley 184, and then Paul Bradley 184 on Instagram as well. All right.
All right. Thanks so much, Paul. Have a great fight next week. We're looking forward to it.